You know, I've made it clear that autumn anime is going to be a bit of a rough season here on the channel, both like in terms of just the content that we are given, but also in terms of like just views and stuff. It's a season that most people seem to agree is kind of lackluster, but there's one thing we can all agree on. Jujutsu Kaisen is friggin' great. So yeah, everybody, welcome back to our weekly Jujutsu Kaisen video. Today we're going to be talking all about episode 2 for myself, but before we do that, quick reminder, if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button and make sure you ring the bell too, put notifications to all, let YouTube know that you give a damn about this channel because YouTube is really focused on the bell these days, so ring that bell, let all of AniTube know you're here. And with that said, everybody, we're going to go ahead and dig into it, and as you can probably tell by the thumbnail, Satoru is best boy. Just immediate best boy. I'm talking like the instant this dude showed up, he was best boy. Now, in fairness, yes, we saw him last week as well, but let's just be real, he steals the spotlight this week. Actually, it's kind of close, it's between him and the principal, but like, Satoru be stealing the spotlight. Like, just immediate best boy potential. Not even potential, like we're talking like just best boy hands down. It's debatable whether or not he's best boy of the season. Not just, I mean, and I don't just mean like this season of Jujutsu Kaisen, I mean this anime season as a whole. Admittedly, the design itself is minimalist, right? Like he's wearing mostly black, and we do see other characters like Fushiguro, who I will be nicknaming as Fushi, but we see characters like Fushi and the principal as well as our boy Satoru, wearing this sort of like all black outfit meant to be, again, sort of like they're a mysterious organization. That's when a character is clad in all black and they're part of a group, typically that group is meant to be viewed as a bit mysterious, a mysterious organization. And that is what the Jujutsu tech system, that whole group of people, what they do. It is secretive, they are mysterious, hence the black outfits. Right? It's just a very easy shorthand for this group is mysterious. And yeah, Satoru is definitely repping that mysterious look, but it's also very distinguished, right? And that pairs well with the white hair. It makes him seem distinguished, but at the same time, his personality sort of offsets that, right? There's a lot of like offsetting the typical personality that you might perceive them to be. Like you could very easily look at Satoru and think like, oh, okay, so stock badass, like that's who this guy's gonna be. But no, he's really funny and he's a bit of a goof and he likes having fun and he's more focused on like getting souvenirs than he is even focusing on the job sometimes, stuff like that. We see that again later with the principal as well, just this sort of subverting of expectations. You're given a sort of like what appears on the surface to be just your basic badass type of character design, and then they flip it on its head, and it's really interesting. I think the most striking to me about the character design, and I guess we're just diving right into character design stuff, sorry, I should have given a heads up. It's design time, everybody. But I guess one of the most interesting parts of the character's design is the blindfold. And to me, I was really sitting here thinking, like, what does the blindfold say about the character? And note that when I'm talking about design time, I am almost never talking about like a literal translation. Like it is rare that I talk about like what this literally means in terms of the narrative. It's usually just what this represents metaphorically for the character. So when I'm thinking of what does a blindfold metaphorically represent for Satoru, I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, y'all know I'm anime only, so I could be wrong. Manga fans, feel free to give your own interpretation on what the character design is trying to say, other than, you know, just looking badass. But if they are trying to say something with the character design, what does the blindfold mean? So I thought about it, and I think it's meant to represent that Satoru is sort of shielding himself from certain aspects of the job. I think by mentioning to Yuji earlier in the episode that you're going to see some really heinous stuff, it tells me that Satoru himself has seen some really heinous stuff, and it probably put him on his heels when he was just starting out. And maybe over time, certain grotesque and grim aspects of dealing with curses has sort of been dulled to him. Like maybe he doesn't really feel it as much, and the blindfold is meant to sort of show that the character is sort of blinding himself, giving himself purposeful blind spots so that he doesn't feel the same shock and horror that maybe he felt when he first was starting out. So maybe, like, on a metaphorical level, that's what the blindfold means. I don't know what the blindfold means in reality. I don't know if he's actually blind, or if maybe it's, like, we see him sort of, like, lifting the blindfold up. So on a, like, literal, like, in-universe level, I think maybe it's, like, to hide power. Like, maybe if he, like, removes the blindfold, he can, like, activate something. I don't super know. But on a metaphorical level, that's where I'm at, where I think it's to show that the character is shielding himself to an extent. But that's just me. Like, y'all know I like digging into metaphors and what does this character's design mean? What do the color choices mean? Stuff like that. I think that stuff is always fun. But it wouldn't be nearly as fun if the performance wasn't fire. And the performance is fire. Yuji Nakamura absolutely bringing his A game, and my man has brought his A game into many roles in the past. The two that I'm thinking of, and the two that I thought of during this week's episode, is definitely like Shigure Soma. Definitely Shigure. Like, this character is like Shigure if he were mixed with just a little bit of Bruno Bucciarati. You know what I mean? Like, just a little bit of my boy Bruno. Two of my favorite shows mixed together. What a lovely combination. But yeah, definitely getting some serious Shigure vibes, which does put my boy Satoru on a possible husbando list. We'll see. Y'all know I like my slightly nefarious but ultimately well-meaning husbandos. And Bruno is also husbando, though he is significantly less nefarious. I do point out the Bruno sort of link, as opposed to more like just like a hint of Bruno, right? Because he is like in terms, and I'm not talking about like in terms of like how the character is portrayed. I just mean like in terms of the inflection. There's a lot of Shigure's sort of like goofy nature, but then like that sudden switch into being a little bit more serious, like that sort of switch that Shigure can do, that's here. But there's also little hints that Nakamura pulls in, where it sort of reminds me of like the Bruno voice that he used to do. It's definitely there, it's subtle, but there's like these little hints that there's like an altruistic side to the character that Nakamura is trying to bring out. And I think that that's really cool. And I just love how much energy Nakamura brings to the role. He like absolutely nails it. There's also a lot of really fun dynamics between between Satoru and Yuji, as well as Satoru and Fushi. You could definitely see, like, with Fushi, Satoru is mostly sort of like goofing around with him. He likes poking fun at Fushi. He knows that it bothers him, so he does it all the more. I think we all have somebody like that in our lives, where like they know that they're bugging you, so they do it even more, and you can't help but play into it. That's definitely the dynamic I see between Satoru and Fushi. There's definitely like a funny teacher and like a reluctant student type of dynamic between the two. And then you get characters like Yuji. And I think Satoru and Yuji are actually, they seem kind of similar to me. Like, they share sort of like a similar lust for life and an excitement. They're both excitable dudes. They're a little bit goofy, pretty funny. Like, they actually share a lot in common. So when they're on screen together, they actually like bounce off each other really, really well. And I think the most interesting dynamic for Satoru isn't even him and the principal. It's actually him and Sukuna. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. When Satoru is explaining the history of Sukuna, and by the way, the backstory for Sukuna is dope. Like this, like double-faced, four-armed monster that was actually a human who became the king of the curses long after his death and all this stuff. And it's an interesting backstory and how none of the Jujutsu practitioners could really take this man down. Like, it was impossible. And so he has gone down as the king of curses, and he left like a sea of Jujutsu practitioners just like lying dead in his wake. And when Yuji is sort of like taken aback by this, maybe for a second thinking like, and I ate that man's finger? I ate two of his fingers. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, dang, this is going to be scary. But he says to Satoru, like, would he get you? Like, if he were here, would he kill you? And Satoru just kind of smirks and says, I'd win. Right? And I'm like, ooh. And don't forget too, Sukuna can like speak through Yuji, right? But I don't just mean like when he takes him over. I mean like he can form a mouth on him and talk like through the mouth wherever it should show up, which is friggin' cool looking. Like, it's a little gross, but it's supposed to be. So I'm like, that's so cool. but they do have like a bit of back and forth, and it's like, when I get control of this kid's body, I'm killing you first, right? And then just Satoru with that little like, yeah, you can try. It's like, oh, this is so cool. I love Sukuna. I love Sukuna, but I love Satoru as well. Like, this cast is so good. This cast is so good. Like, just look at our MC, right? MCs in shonen stories typically walk this, like, fine line of trying to give them a lot of development. Like, a lot of, like, really solid shonen characters will get a decent amount of development as they go, but typically they're the sort of, like, goody two-shoes type characters. And Yuji is that, but there's, like, a reluctance to it at first. I like that he has to, like, build himself up. There's something about Yuji, maybe specifically in his direct link with Sukuna, that sort of sets him apart from other protagonists. I'm thinking of characters like Deku or like Tanjiro or even characters like Naruto. You know what I mean? Like, there's something about Yuji that sets him apart. And I think it's the fact that they actually let him not like lose. Like, I'm sure he will lose, but the fact that like he has these little falls, right? Like, he has these moments where things do get to him. He's not always happy. He has these little moments where he has to build himself up. And it's not like he starts off typical shonen, like, must-do good stuff hero type character. His grandfather's death has to push him into that. And it's knowing that he wouldn't feel right sitting at home, knowing that Sukuna is out there hurting people. That's what pushes him. It's not that he starts off goody two-shoes, it's that he has to discover that he is goody two-shoes. And I do think that like, having to discover that, instead of just innately being born with that, like so many other shonen protagonists are. And that's not a knock. Y'all know I love Deku, I love Tanjiro, I love Naruto, I love all those characters. One of my favorite characters of all time is Goku, for God's sake. Like, I love Yastak, like, I want to fight strong guys, or like even Naruto is another character I adore, who is just like, I want to protect people. Even friggin' Ichigo I love, right? Like, just characters who are good for the sake of being good. That usually does work with me. I like my goodest boys. They're sweet boys, you know what I mean? And Yuji definitely has that, but I like that he has to build into it, you know? And again, like, we see him, like, being sad at the fact that he's now being forced into the situation. Like, he has that, and he tries to hide it behind the smile, right? Like, I gotta throw up the screenshot. This broke my heart. And it's this, like, little scene where he says goodbye to the occult club, knowing that he's probably never gonna see them again. Right? Like, he got involved, now he's stuck, and he has to follow through with what his grandfather asked him to do, and what the Jujutsu Tech team are going to force him into. He's stuck now, and he has to go. But you can see it's not just him waving goodbye to his classmates, it's him waving goodbye to the life that he just kind of wanted to have. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a powerful moment where, like, and it's subtle. It's super subtle, right? Like, it's him becoming the goody two-shoes character that so many other shonen characters are, when he just kind of wanted to read manga, hang out with the occult club, like, goof around with his friends. Like, that's all he wanted to do. But now he's roped into something bigger than himself. And I was really, really impressed with that. I just think the character is great. It's fun too, the fact that he ends up rooming like right beside Fushi and stuff like that, and the school itself is great. Like, and there's so many other great scenes that I'm not even like really touching on, like him and Satoru like at Gramps, like collecting Gramps' ashes. It's man, just like, yeah, the character is great, and I love that he comes to that decision of like, it's not that Gramps forced this on him, that started him on this path. But at the end of the day, he's the only one who can do this. Like, he is the only one who can take down Sukuna, and it has to be him. Hence the episode title, For Myself. It's not just that he is here to take down Sukuna once and for all, to collect all the fingers and to lock him away, and then, like, let them kill him with Sukuna in tow, you know? Like, it's not just that he's doing that because his grandfather would want that. He knows deep down that that's what he has to do. And I like that he confronts that, like, inner sort of debate with himself. It's really super cool. And of course, it's the principal who sort of pushes him into that. Very solid principal, by the way. In fact, let's talk a little bit about the principal for just a wee second, because I have to say, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I did not do my full research on the show, normally I do like my research where I'll look into the cast and crew and like write them all down in my notes here and all that fun stuff. I didn't finish that before the season started, and I was like, screw it, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just gonna let myself be surprised when characters show up, right? So I was so happy when they walked in to see the principal, and I heard the voice before I even saw the character. And I heard the voice, and who is the voice? It's Takia Kuroda! Yes, bitches, that's right! It's Kiryu friggin' Kazuma! I lost my mind. I was like, oh, it's Kiryu! I was so happy. Kuroda is, like, so underutilized. Like, I adore Takia Kuroda. Like, his voice is so perfect, and he can change it up. It's not like he's one-to-one Kiryu here. Like, there's a difference, right? Like, there's a bit more, like, aggression, right? Like, there's a bit more of, like a I don't know, there's just a bit more of like a gruffness to this voice than Kiryu. Kiryu is a bit of a teddy bear, right? So I'm thinking, oh man, the principal is gonna be like a real badass. Psych. Like the principal's like crafting cute ass plushies and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh okay, it definitely is a Kuroda role, right? And again, if we look at the character design, right? When you see the design, this man be rocking shades indoors like he's my boy Sun Woo. You know, he's got the goatee, he's got the shaved sides on the head there. He just looks like a general badass, right? Like you see like the size of him. He's a total tank of a man. He's voiced by friggin' Kuroda, so you know he's badass. But you see like all these stuffed animals around him, and you're like, that's very offsetting, right? So you're trying to figure out like what's up with this dude. Like, and again, it's the show subverting your expectations. You see this design, you think they're gonna be one way, and then they totally sidewind you, and it's totally different, right? Now, the principal is a badass, but he's also incredibly insightful, and he has a bit of a goofy streak, right? Like, when he's talking, like, when Yuji comes to this realization of, like, I have to do this for myself, and he's like, congratulations, you passed, he forgets to, like, take away the curse on the doll, and so it just like cracks Yuji in the mouth, and he's like, oh yeah, my bad, I forgot to take away the curse, that's my bad. It's like, oh man, like I like that he's a bit of a goof, right? But he's like he's another character who is like, he's a bit awkward, but he means well, and he's incredibly perceptive. Like he can pretty much tell immediately what Yuji's deal is and how to sort of push Yuji into the direction he should be going in if he's going to become a member of Jujutsu Tech. And just the fact that it's Kuroda makes me so happy. I'm so happy. I loved the principal. Again, it's Kuroda, so like, of course I'm gonna be happy, but I loved it. Also the ED. I should have mentioned it by now, but yes, Lost in Paradise is one hell of a bop. I'm a little bit like concerned that like the OP is gonna play at like the end of episodes where like maybe it's not appropriate because it's a hell of a bop, right? So I'm like, I don't know if like if a character like gets seriously injured and then you play Lost in Paradise, I'm probably gonna be like, I shouldn't be dancing, but it's a good tune. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a little concerned. Also, not just I was vibing, but my boy Yuji and my possibly new husbando, I don't know, I gotta wait and see, Satoru was also vibing. Fushi not as much, but New Girl was also vibing herself, you know what I mean? Like, everybody be vibing, except for Fushi, but Fushi may be vibing on the inside. But yeah, the ED's great, the principal's great, Satoru is amazing, and Yuji is friggin' awesome. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the show. Like, I have no idea where it's going, but I'm excited. But with that said, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's video here, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, and hit that sub button and ring that bell. Make sure, if you're already subbed to the channel, if you haven't already, ring that bell. Super important now. YouTube changed everything, so the bell is now super important. So ring that bell, make sure it's turned on to all. Make sure. And of course, before we go, as always, I have to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people to become one of the folks sliding across your screen, then there are now 2 ways to do so. The first is by clicking that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, and the second option is by hitting that join button right beside the sub button to get a badge next to your name, some emotes to spam in the comments and premiere chats, and of course your name scrolling at the end of these videos. So if that sounds cool to you, consider hitting that join button or clicking that Patreon link. Either way, it is super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the T Squadron. I am going to go eat, not a finger, I'm just kind of hungry, but until next time, you stay classy on YouTube, and wash your dang hands.